Right, so the first exercise is to cut out a number 1 like this on the bandsaw. It's one of the core machines that everyone is expected to learn how to use. It's one of the more dangerous machines, obviously, for you guys to use. You won't have used it in secondary level. You're considered not mature enough yet. Like learning to drive a car. Cars, obviously, quite dangerous machines if you use them wrongly. Follow the highway code. Keep your wits about you. Make sure you're following all the rules and they're perfectly safe. Same with a bandsaw, basically. So, things to bear in mind before switching it on. We just do a quick little checklist of safety. So first of all, yourself. Because you're in the workshop, you're going to be wearing safety glasses or the mask anyway. But it's just more making sure you haven't got anything loose dangling down, your lanyard's tucked in. You haven't got any bracelets dangling down or anything like that. And like I say, it's a good idea to not wear your favourite outfits in the workshop anyway. You've got good stout footwear, etc, etc. Okay, second is the room itself. So make sure you've got space around you. You need 1.5 meters to step back from the machine if you run into any trouble. Also, we're going to need to make sure the extraction's on. I'll do that at the very end because it makes talking a bit harder over the noise. So yeah, make sure space around you and the extraction's on with the room. And then finally the machine itself. If there's anything wrong with it, we might switch it off at the wall down there. There's a sign saying don't switch it on without permission. We might have turned it off if there's a dangerous fault or anything like that, so it's important not to use that rotary switch to turn it on. Come and ask if you're not sure. Just a general visual on the machine, it all looks fine. The most important thing to do is to adjust the guard here. So to do this on this grey machine, we just turn this handle here and that will loosen it. Bear in mind I haven't turned it loads to undo it like a lot of people do at first. And then this handle here moves the guard up and down. Now I'm looking to get the work under it, obviously, but not my fingers on top of it. That's generally the threshold to which you want to keep that guard at all times. And then just tighten that up like that. Just a little turn, tighten and loosen. Other knobs and levers on the machine, such as the blade tension on the underside, the cover handles on the front, there's an adjustment here on the back. Don't touch any of those, it's all set up and finely tuned to work correctly. So if you're not sure it's working properly, also listening out, if it doesn't quite sound right, then come and speak to myself or Arthur about it. Okay, so the guard's the correct height, everything else is good. I'm just going to go and put the extraction on. I'll just move the tripod for you so you know where it is. Hopefully that's still in focus. So start button here to switch it on, clean button here to turn it off afterwards. So on with it like that. Now also, during this epidemic time, it's important as well just to make sure you're happy with the hygiene aspect of it. So with the paper towels and the wipes, make sure you get it disinfected with machine cleaning. Okay, technique wise, we're going to be cutting the short cuts first. The reason is, if you cut a long cut first like that, you've got to back the blade out of it. So there's a long way to go for it to get out. Whereas if I just cut the short cut, by the time I cut the long cut, it's going to fall off and I don't need to back it out. Now it's important not to back the blade out too much because it can come off the spool. There's a bearing on the back supporting it, so you can push hard against it and a T-bar. But if you pull it back like that, there is a chance that the whole blade will come off the spool. Particularly important, when using these machines, you'll notice there's a horseshoe shape here. That is a no-go zone for fingers when the machine's on. Really, if you want to get your fingers inside of that, you're welcome to turn the machine off, and if you have turned it off, you can turn it back on again on the rotary isolator. But it's really important never to put your fingers in there. You'll find this number 1 is actually big enough to never need to put your fingers in there. If I cut that, that finger is going to be right in the corner. I don't have my fingers like that. have them right in the corner like that all the time. Now if you're not sure if your finger's going to end up in the horseshoe zone, then use a push stick. They're located on the back of the machine here, on the back of the breed machine as well. Now you won't actually need to use a push stick for this side. So I think of it like little Trump hands, you know, when Donald Trump talks, he talks like this. Make sure you've got those fingers right in the corner of the work. Use both hands, control it. Power on here, make sure nothing's touching the blade when he starts as well, so we're not going to have the work touching the blade when he begins. Pull it back, on with the machine, fingers in the corners like that. Remember, keep it out of the, keep your fingers outside of that horseshoe. And let's do the shortcut first. So first one, I'm just going to off-rust the blade, look down the slot there, should be able to see the blade. Gently just pushing it in, shouldn't need to use much force as it cuts like that, and then even more gently just pull it out. Okay, the second cut, we're going to use this fence, and we cut this one here. So just a little turn on the handle here, move it in. Use the fence and the work to move it, to guide it up and down, so I can align it first, and then tighten it up. Just a little turn like that to tighten it up. Again, still remember to keep your fingers in the corner. I'm going to just use this one to push it along, to guide it, and this one just to hold it against the fence. Now I haven't actually lined that up perfectly, but you can see it's a nice straight cut. And then the third method, down here, is a mitre block. Now this can be used to set an angle. In this case we can still keep it right angle to the blade. It's quite handy. If you've got a short stumpy bit of work as well, if you want to have a cut. So this last cut I'm going to cut here on the mitre block. Again, I'm going to use my hand to pinch it against the block of work, against the mitre block here, holding it straight, so I don't let it tip off the block like that. Okay, and then back out gently. Right, so three methods of cutting. Freehand, obviously, if you want to vary the shape, if it's not going in a straight line, that's the best method. Right, the fence is definitely the best method for this, assuming this is going to be parallel to the side that's going to run along the fence. Bring it up, offer it up nice and close, and then tighten it up. Now when doing this, just think your fingers by the end of it might be in horseshoe. So if I hold it here, by the time I get to the end it might be in horseshoe. Just be mindful of where your fingers are going to end up. Also notice if I push here, it's likely to come away from the fence and I won't cut a straight line. So if you're pushing, it's almost kind of driving into the fence the whole time if you're pushing on this side. Get a nice straight cut. Now where my finger's going to approach the horseshoe like that, I can either finish it off here or I can use a push stick. But so long as you know your finger's not going to be in the horseshoe, this is acceptable like that. Now remember when I said don't let it back out of the machine, the best thing to do is to move the fence out of the way. And then you can take the offcut in, remove your work carefully like that. All too often accidents can happen when people are just pulling work away from, they just put their fingers in that horseshoe and rip out a little piece of work, a little offcut like that. Either use your work or a push stick if it's too valuable. If you've been working on your work for ages, you probably don't want to risk jabbing it like that, but better an offcut like that than your fingers. Right, we're now going to try this curve. Now this curve is actually the minimum radius that a blade like this, a half-inch blade, likes. So it looks like it's quite a straightforward cut, but it's actually quite a struggle on a thick blade like this on a bandsaw. If you want to cut anything tighter than this, you've either got to do relief cuts, where you cut down like that and then cut it, nibble it, and sand it off, because it's not going to be a smooth curve. or you can use the scroll saw over in the middle of the workshop to cut much more delicate little things. So when moving it, the best thing to do is to aim first. So I'm not actually going to be starting off straight, because that line doesn't start straight. Anything you cut straight into the line should cut forward of the line like that. So imagine this line is actually coming out at a tangent out of the front of the blade. It's going to be starting at a slight angle like that. So I'm going to offer it up like that, and then as soon as it's in the wood, I'm going to keep turning. Now it's really important not to turn it on the spot. If you don't make the line, just have another go, but you can't turn even tighter in this curve. The blade will make all sorts of struggling noises to warn you that you're twisting it. Ultimately your blade will snap. Notice how I just used the work as well to knock it out. So there you go. It is actually quite a struggle to cut that line, but keep it moving forward as well as turning it like that. Now on this side we're going to be doing the same, except there's no guideline. I'm going to start at an angle like this, and I want to be able to, by the time I get to this line, I want to be straight on the line. The hole number one should be straight and parallel with the table, like that. If I start too steep, like this, I'm going to need a tighter curve than this to be able to get to that line. So think about where you start this line. If it's too shallow, obviously you won't make this line. Too steep, and it's too much of a curve. This is like a CD size. Those of you who might remember DVDs and CDs. So yeah, try not to cut anything steeper, tighter curve than a CD. So I'm going to offer it up back here, and then straight away I'm going to turn, keeping an eye on the light. I've actually almost got it straight. I need a bit further to go, so I'm going to stop turning, and then start turning. So I'm on the line now, it's nice and straight. Remember also where that finger's going to end up. It's going to be in the line, so I'm going to push it on this side. There you go, and you should end with something like that. Just use the push stick or the work to get rid of the offcut like that. And then finally, this way round, we're going to just offer it up to where it's on the straight line. That's your lot. That thing is right on the edge. Like I said, this is actually just big enough to not need a push stick when you cut it. But if in doubt, use a push stick. Okay, don't forget to switch it off. If you're the only person using the extraction, then by all means turn it off. But generally, if there are people in the workshop, we'll just leave it on. Okay, so that's the bandsaw for you. Right, after bandsaw we're going to have a quick little familiarisation with the disc slander. There's not really a lot to do on this number one, but it's just to get your head around how it works, what it's for, and evasion precautions when you're going to use it. So we've done the checklist in terms of myself. I'm dressed appropriately. The extraction's still on, and there's plenty of space around me at the moment. But obviously for the same reasons, make sure all of those rules are covered. Now, in terms of specific to this machine, it's just important to give it, again, just give it a little visual check, make sure it's okay. So we're looking to make sure this quadrant guard is on and in good position. And this table here should have a couple of millimetres gap there between the two, and it's nice and firm. Effectively, that's all you need to make sure this machine is okay. If you notice the disc is a bit tatty or anything, come and speak to myself or Arthur and we'll assess it and change it if it looks like it's worn out. It goes without saying you don't want to really sand your fingers on this, so keep your fingers away from it. We generally say more than an inch from here. And it's really important to make sure it's flat on the table like that. You don't want to be sanding up in the air like that, because it really has some momentum. If it just catches, it will just fly out of your hand if you're not careful. I've seen it happen. Particularly dodgy when you're using something like this, if you're going to be sanding this on the bottom, you want to make sure that doesn't catch, because it will just literally fly out of hand like that. So make sure everything you're sanding is flat on the table if you can. If for some reason you have to sand the edge like this, really, really important to hold it very firmly and try and have it trailing. So don't push it in that way, basically. Naturally want to dig in and carry on that way. You can sand plastics, some mild metals like mild steel and aluminium, although we don't recommend it, it does wear the disc out and it gets quite hot. But when using plastics, just be aware, especially in acrylic, that it won't produce dust, it just produces a kind of smeary mold residue under here, which can actually solidify, and then your work can get stuck there, which is sometimes because you've got small pieces of work like that. So just make sure if you're using this machine, it's all flat on the table like that, hold it firmly, keep your fingers away from that. So for the number one, we can just round off the corners like that quickly. On button is here, that's that switch on here. So we'll just use the pivot like that. You'll see why it's worth having safety glasses. I don't know if the camera picked that up, but just a little bit of MDF flying off like that. So, especially a new disc like that, it's very effective at sanding very quickly. If you want to have a sand around the edge like that, that's fine. Just make sure what you're sanding is held firmly like that. And then on the back. Okay, and then off there.